So the problem is that there is a complete disconnect between what every one of us, you or me, can handle because of the scale of a problem. I mean, the Earth has been symbolically, in painting, in mythology, present into politics, but never, I mean, literally present. So it's a complete novelty for every culture, every society, every civilization. And the novelty of it requires a completely different equipment, not only a scientific equipment, but also a mental, or as you say, a cognitive equipment. And for that, the number of resources is not unlimited. So the only solution people have found so far is to say, well, let's the thing not happen, and let's deny it as possible. So this is where we are. This is the shortcoming, is that there is no tool, it's new, and the reaction is pretty much what you would do if you had a disease with no cure. You would prefer to ignore it. Try 3 different entry. One of them is to modify what aesthetics mean. Aesthetics is not just art. Aesthetic is sensitivity, the way of feeling something. And in our time, the way to do it is not only through the art, which is very important. I mean, all the art and ecology is quite an important field, but also for scientific instruments themselves. So it's through the development of scientific instruments and the collaboration with artists as well that the connection, the sensitivity can be increased, so to speak. But the third point, which is sort of collaboration between the two, is what I call the mapping of scientific controversies. Because that's very important, and it's a way to let people know that it's not a question of science or politics, but a sort of intermingled question where all these questions are in fact uncertain. So the big difference between the situation of the past and the situation of the present is that the controversy about the solution and the controversy about the problem are good points. It's very important that the controversy be foregrounded. So art, science, and controversy are the 3 ways in which not maybe the human race, but at least part of the human race can increase their awareness of the problem of ecology. Lovelock invented a Gaia, which was not a political entity, of course. It was, in his view, a cybernetic series of loops, looping on one another. And he was clearly integrating it into a science, or more exactly an engineering view of the Earth. And in that sense, Gaia is not very useful as such, because first he wants to get rid of the human race, which is not a great help. And for him, Gaia is going to get rid of human. But of course, if you take Gaia now as I said before, as a political as well as a scientific entity, then the question of composing and assembling the right entities at all the different scales which are responsible for the problem of the Earth as such, then Gaia is a very useful myth. I mean, it's a strange beast. It's the name of a goddess. It's a scientific invention. It's simultaneously, like the word Anthropocene tells us, a mixture of humans and former nature. It's local. It's historical. It has all sorts of interesting characteristics for politics. It's not completely impossible to bring Gaia into politics. What is the collaboration? The nature of the collaboration between art, science, and politics is exactly what it was when they invented in the 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, the question of democracy and the social question. I mean, it was invented. There was nothing in the history that prepared us to invent the social question and to imagine what industrial society were and how they could still be democratic. I mean, all of that had to be invented. But the work, which has been done for 2 centuries at least, if we start with the beginning of the 18th century, to invent the characters playing in democracy, the notion of citizen, the notion of people, the notion of social question, the notion of class, is an invention of many different people, in which the novelist as important and statisticians and geographers and of course political inventors and political philosophers. So the problem of all this question of ecology is that they
find their way into politics much too fast, and there is so little work being done to absorb all of those new entities coming in. I mean, who could have imagined that most of political question would be linked to the climate 40 years ago? I mean, nobody. So not exactly nobody, a few people, but so we completely underestimate the difficulty of bringing ecological question. Again, I use ecology, but it's not the right word. Question of survival and living together. We underestimate the speed at which they need to be domesticated, so to speak, and made politically relevant. I have a very specific definition of politics. Politics is the progressive composition of a common world. And the progressive composition of a common world cannot possibly be imagined and even begin to be imagined without the science, because the scientists are the ones who bring in new entities. I mean, the best example is climate change. I mean, the climate change would not have been visible without the scientists, but also without what I call the third aesthetics, which is the aesthetic coming from the artists themselves. That is, to give us the sensitivity to absorb all these things that the scientists are bringing in. So there are three aesthetics, if you want. There is, in the original sense of aesthetic, that is, rendering oneself sensitive to phenomena. There is the scientific one, which is made for instruments, and that's very important. There is the artistic one, which is how to render sensitive yourself to the phenomena. And then there is the political one. But the problem of politics now, when you deal with this question of what used to be ecological question, but which now are question of survival, is that there is no sensitivity. Political. We don't know even what the issues are. It's very difficult to visualize them. So you have no period in history where politics can be produced and invented without the art being mobilized in order to define who are the characters who play on the political scene. And we don't have those characters yet. I mean, climate is something so complex and big and hard. So we need many years of art and scientific collaboration to begin to have the right characters for politics. Knowledge is an operation that produces objectivity through practice of collective inquiry with instruments about the world. There's nothing really mysterious in that. Truth is a completely different question, because truth is not associated necessarily with knowledge. Knowledge is about objectivity, which is one kind of truth, but there are many others. Yeah, truth about politics, truth about diplomacy, truth about religion, truth about law, truth about art, and every time there is a difference between true and false. So I don't think we have any advantage to associate knowledge and truth. Knowledge with objectivity, and that's already largely enough and largely difficult enough. Of course I am a relativist, like all scientists. Like in objectivity, you cannot produce objectivity without being relativist, which means that you are able to establish relation with very different type of frames of reference and different type of people, different type of things, different. You have to think in many different point of view if you want to be a geologist studying rocks, or if you want to be an anthropologist studying other people. I mean, relativism is the heart of scientific objectivity production. Now, when people say I'm a relativist, they mean that I don't believe that the way science produces objectivity should lord over all of the other truth conditions, and that's perfectly true. I think it's a mistake, and that it has corrupted science as well as it has corrupted the other forms of truth production. So I think there is no advantage, and as I said before, of associating truth and knowledge. Knowledge is about objectivity. Let's do it. It does it very well sometimes, and it has to be defended and it has to be protected against criticism. But truth is something else entirely, and there are no reason to attack science in the names of truth, nor to protect it, nor to attack, nor to protect. It's a category mistake. But rationalists love to do this category mistake because they have charged science with a capital S with everything. Morality, politics, religion, law, and so on. So when we say I'm a relativist, it's just to say, okay, let's protect science against this excess of weight that you burden science with things that it cannot produce or deliver. Because it's producing objectivity. It doesn't produce good life, it doesn't produce law, it doesn't produce religion, it doesn't produce poetry. There are many other things which we need to live in a collective which science cannot deliver. Why charging it with the weight of holding civilization on its back if it's not able to deliver it? Let science deliver something else. And that the only thing it does well, which is produce objectivity about the state of the world, it's not even protected against that, because you need money, you need people, you need training. All of these things will disappear from a view of science which is usually projected as truth, capital T, about science, capital S. So I'm part of those who want to protect science against the excess of epistemology, but also against criticism. For that it has to be, you have to provide a realistic definition of what science is. Social sciences are among the most important sciences in terms of shaping the environment in which people live. I mean, economics, psychology, pedagogy, sociology, archaeology, it depends where you put history. I mean, all of these sciences are already producing the world of science and technology. And think of the importance of political science, for instance. So it's already there. What is probably important for science and technology studies to contribute to science and technology production is, well, first to try to educate the scientists and the engineers in a different way of their practice. I mean, this might be impossible, but we have to try. And the other thing is that now all of the issues are requiring, as we will see tomorrow actually, that different ways of linking science and politics be achieved, because we live in the time of the Anthropocene. So it's, when you take a scientific topic, you end up studying humans, and when you study a human, you end up studying a piece of science. So it's very important that it becomes possible for, even for the scientists themselves, to get into connection with the social sciences in a very, very different way than it was the case before. Well, it's important because the scientists are completely unable to make their job. I mean, look at the climate dispute. I mean, there's absolutely no way the scientists tell us, and have told us for now 20 years what's the situation, and nothing happens. The people are completely stuck. So it means that it's not knowledge, which is, of course, I mean, knowledge is not enough to make you do anything. There is a streak in the last century, which is to say all of this warning, all of these other ways of looking at the world we would ignore. I mean, that's where there is a specifically modernist streak, when people say, we will find a solution. Geoengineering, for example, is a typically modernist answer to this situation. We will find a technical solution. We don't know which one, but we will re-engineer the planet in a way which will satisfy the necessity. That's a typically modernist streak, which is, of course, completely insensitive to the difficulty of the task of geoengineering first. How would you geoengineering something you don't even know how it works? But also because it gives the impression that you could continue the modernist project without changing anything.